Everyone, and welcome back in. So today I'm going to be breaking down the price differences with the 151 product, both in sealed, but this time I'm going to add volume with singles as well as with the sealed product. And so we're going to take a look at different products, the volume, what the volume really means and is telling you, versus sealed as well as singles, because there is two very different meanings of volume. So you have to understand the difference between some products might look like they're going to be heading lower. Some products might look like they're going to be heading higher. It just really depends. We're picking 151 with this because of obviously how hot it's been lately within the market. Here is the UPC of 151, and the UPC continues to move higher. For the last year, it's up 200%, over 200%. Last 3 months, it's up 77%, which seems crazy. But ultimately, as there's no booster box with 151, it seems like both this product as well as the Pokemon Center ETB has kind of taken over that what would be booster box spot within within the actual set. Currently, if you want the cheapest trusted seller, you're looking at about $1,115. If you want the cheapest hobby shop, you're looking at closer to $1,150 after shipping. And one of the things I'll bring up right off the bat, since this is a more premium expensive product, is when you click the 1-year chart, and if you're viewing the 1-year chart here, look at these blue bars and make sure that right here on top of this chart it says exactly what you're looking for. So in this example, I already have verified sellers picked out, and I'm only looking at unopened, in other words, sealed products, right? So what I'm looking at is volume. How does volume relate to price and how price moves? So for example, one of the things that is, if you were to own this product, one of the things that would make it very attractive as far as from a volume standpoint is you see how last week, this March 9th through March 15th, last week, you can see that there was 46 items sold. 46, okay? The average week, it looks like between 10 to 15. And the reason why it's important to see 46, the week before that's 38, week before that's 25, you have this growing volume trend with this spiking in price. And the reason why that is important to acknowledge is that means that you have buyers showing up and moving with the product as the product is increasing in price, right? The product went from effectively $700, jumped all the way up to $1,100, and you're having buyers support these prices, right? Are moving up with the price to support it, okay? That's very important. That is very important, because if you don't have that, and if you don't have buyers supporting that price and the buyers disappear, the price will fall usually. Unless there's a severe shortage, the price normally will fall. You need buyers to show up at the price you're at. Otherwise, like I said, you're going to have more issues. So even here, right, you'll see a spike in volume when the product first came out, which is very normal. This product was definitely very high in demand when it first showed up. And then, as you'll see here, let me get my mouse out of the way. As you'll see here within the June and July months, you'd have a volume spiking, but price not really spiking it, right? Might have a random 23 sale week versus like a 9, 10, 12 sales, right? Volume slowly, or price is slowly increasing, and then you'll have these spike in volumes, right? Like right here where it's 32, and price jumps to 500. One of the things that kind of tells somebody is, okay, so there's definitely spikes in volume. So this product's in high demand, right? This product is wanted, which is always a good thing when your product's wanted by the market. And price spiked, showing that there wasn't that much inventory really available in the market, okay? And then, of course, there was a couple weeks where there was volume dropped off, which, again, a lot of times is completely normal to have some random spikes where someone big has a lot of money, is getting in, and then once they stop buying and they take a little break, you'll see the volume return right back to normal, essentially, right back to what average typically is. And then the interesting part is you see another large spike in volume right here for the last week of September at 32. 32 sold, right? Again, you're averaging, 8 to 12 to 14, and then you see a spike of 32. So, and then right after that, again, and it's probably a similar buyer as what was over here in August, right? And then what happens? The buying volume drops off, right? So whoever was building these positions was done building, right? They had the position they kind of wanted, and they might buy one or two here or there, but they're not going to get as much into a large position, right? But look, what do you see? Even as the volume is gone right here all through Q4, even as the volume was gone, okay? And keep in mind, this last Q4, Pokemon prices of sealed product especially was heading lower. Okay, the market was heading lower. But yet, as you see, the price of this product didn't really head lower, did it? It mainly went sideways. So even as the volume was decreasing, had very low volume weeks, the product price was not like in the free fall like it is constantly with other products. It was primarily going mainly sideways. So when you see this, all that this tells you is, oh man, all we need is some good, more strong volume, and boom, you'll be ripping it. And that's exactly what happened. As you start having people start to increase their volume, boom, takes off. Because we already can determine here that the inventory of this product is low, right? By this whole Q4, that it was already low inventory available to buy of this product, right? Relative to the market demand. That definitely matters. So, and then as this price increases, obviously you'll also have some of these people, look to sell out of some product just because they're up so much on it, right? And so if you buy multiple, of course you're going to look to trim a little bit of your position as it's moving up a lot. Here is the regular ETB 4151. The 1 year chart, it's up 200%. 3 month chart, it is up 65% effectively. Again, look at the volumes. Okay, look at the volumes. So you'll see that there are reprints here, right? As people love to say, oh, the Pokemon's not done any reprint. No, they've reprinted stuff. Typically, the real question is the market eating it up, right? Because countless times, that's the real response is they are doing reprints, guys. It's just the market is eating up the reprint and stuff isn't crashing like it was in 2022, 2023, okay? So when you're able to look at some of this stuff and you see these large spikes, okay, large spikes, that's typically where some reprints are happening, okay? Especially when you see multiple retailers selling product at the same time. That's because they reprinted product and they shipped it out to their different sources, right? TCG Player will get some, as well as Amazon, Walmart, Target, all these other places will also get product, okay? Depending on the size of the reprint will depend on how much volume they really have, right? But as you see here, see how this product is falling right here, right? It's hard for me to have this up without this price blocking the volume bars. But you'll see here in October, right? Price was heading higher in October. And then November, boom, it crashed down, right? Last week, November, right here, right? Spike in volume, price crashed. Crashed relative to the product, right? I mean, it only went from 405 to 350, right? $50 is hardly a crash, but you get what I'm saying, right? Price started pulling back. Huge spike in volumes. What happened? Immediate rebound. Why rebound? Because the market ate up this dump, right? Market ate it up like nothing. It was very short-lived. Market ate it up, ran with it, and from then on, when you see this and you see these random large volume spikes, but the price isn't really increasing, then that means that there's a lot of liquidity there, and you'll see that in some cards I'm going to show in a little bit. And for singles, when you see large volume spikes, people are buying, right? People are buying those cards or those sets or that product, okay? If you see large volume spikes and the price isn't really moving, that means there's so much liquidity there, right? There's so many people trying to sell their item at that price. That's why it hasn't moved up, okay? When you start to see volume spikes and then prices appreciating really fast out of it, that's where you go, oh, there's not much liquidity here at these levels, and it's going to continue to skyrocket. And in this product, you would say that right here, right? For the last 3 weeks. As you see, as volume spikes, guess what? Price appreciates really quickly. You know, the last time you had some lower volume was 455, right? Right here, right before Pokemon Day. It was 455 for this ETB for 151. 1 week goes by. It goes to 497. Jumps $40. Another week goes by, 575. Right? Jumped $80 in a week. Why does it do that? Because there's low liquidity here. Guys, there's low liquidity. Now this 600 level looks like there's some people are coming back, bringing their extra ETBs back to the market because they're saying, you know what? Maybe they bought here at 350, you know, or 335. And they're like, you know what? It's 600. I'm okay selling one. I'll take my profits and have my other one ride, right? That's what people love to do, whether it's booster boxes, ETBs, booster bundles, whatever it is, right? People love to do that. And I'm one of them, right? I love to do that too. Buy a bunch of extra product, leave it sealed. As it starts to rip and it goes crazy and doubles and triples and everything, then slowly start selling out of it, right? And then taking that product and buying more, right? Taking that money and buying more other Pokemon, right? Depending on what it is in that moment, in that time. And so one of the things to understand is that where you have these liquidity zones, you'll start understanding, okay, right? Big buyer walked up, bought at 350. So they're kind of putting a price floor, right? When you have big buyers show up at certain prices, they're starting to build a floor at that level, okay? And what happens is if price were to dump again to 350, this buyer who was buying these at 350 will probably step in and buy all of them again, right? And you know, when you start buying out all the liquidity, like I said, that's going to start pushing prices higher, right? Because there's no product there, okay? So that's the ETB, the regular ETB. If you want one right now from a trusted seller, it's $323 and change. If you want the first hobby shop, it's $700 for an ETB from 151. Volume-wise, definitely not crazy spikes like it was previously other times, but it's still pretty healthy. It didn't really plummet, right? It went from 33 sold. The very next week went 32, and then last week was at 27. So it came down a little bit. Doesn't seem bad though. We'll have to see what it does this week. That's really what's going to be the tell as far as how many get sold. But liquidity of this product, of the 151 ETB, is definitely drying up. I would not be surprised if this is one of the products they dump back on the market again, right? And people love to say, well, but Brad, 151 is coming out of TCG rotation in April. Sure, I know. But the thing is, printing takes time, right? They might have already be printing these boxes. All of this box might already be printed. They could, I mean, packaging, you know, putting into packs and packaging and getting these ETBs all together and then sealing them, all that jazz, and then putting them to the distribution and having distribution send them out. All of that takes time, guys. It could be 4 to 6 months from the point they're printing to the point it's actually on store shelves. Well, if it takes that long, we could easily see 151 product in June, July, August, easily, right? It just depends on what the product is. If it's ETB or booster bundles, you know, which is right here, right? The 151 booster bundle has gone nuts. And the one thing that's kind of surprised me about this product is that they have not reprinted it like they have other sets. And that's the part to me that kind of makes me scratch my head. Because if you're reprinting massively on the Journey Together booster bundles, which they are, and they continuously massive reprints of booster bundles on Journey Together, why aren't you reprinting the 151? I mean, you see here, you see the volume, right? The initial release, which there's always large amount of product when you start having products come out, right? Eventually, prices or volume, people that wanted them and got them in the beginning or whatnot. Now I know this is not the exact beginning, obviously, because the set's been out, but people that wanted the product already got them. And as you see here, you'll start to see again, right? You'll start to see volume spikes, right? Like, look, check out right here. So like this week here in June to early July, there was 165 sold. Okay, that week. Okay, so product was averaging about 165 to 200 in that range, right? Some weeks it spikes up to in the threes or in the high twos, but looks like most of the time on average, it's about 150 to 200, 225. Okay, on selling. But look at here in mid August, price started to spike, right? Started to move up, and so did volume. It jumped to 432 sold this week. So somebody definitely was starting to buy up some of this, right? And so some of these might have been stocked in the Pokemon vending machines, or some of them trickling out from distribution. But again, there's buyers, right? There's buyers sitting there waiting, okay, and just letting some of these just kind of slowly trickle out into the market. The market's going to absorb them so fast, it's not even going to be funny, right? Especially on a super popular product like 151. Again, you see volume spikes again here in late September, right? Large volume spike again to 95. Except with this product, there was a little pullback, right? They had hit a high here in late September of 105, and ultimately fell to about $90, right? By Black Friday, late November, it was about $90. Okay, still about 100. Volume spike right here. See that? Of 292 products. Again, could easily have had some that were slowly being printed that they slowly released out, right? But the market absorbed it. Why? How can I say that? Look at it. The price didn't even go down. It just absorbed it and kept moving. Okay? Absorbed it, kept moving, and then all of a sudden, guess what? As people keep buying this product, and as liquidity dries up, there's no one here selling product. They're just holding them sealed. You're going to start getting massive price appreciation. Now, here's one thing I will say about this product. I wonder if the market firmly believes that there is going to be a massive reprint of the booster bundle. The reason why I say that, do you see how bad the volume is right now? It's virtually the same as it's been this whole time. Okay? It's a little elevated, but not much. But look at price. Price went from effectively 110, 115, 118, all the way up to 180, 186. But volume is not following, right? Volume is just kind of staying consistent, okay? So, would I be surprised to see this come down some? I would not be surprised. I would actually expect it to. Now, how much will it come down? Probably nothing crazy, right? Not if it's just off its own merit. Nothing crazy. Why do I say that? Because there's no more product in the market, right? Assuming that 151 booster bundles isn't being announced of being massively reprinted, there's not a bunch of new prints coming out on the market. So I would expect it, come down to maybe 150 at the low, maybe at best, right? But it's obviously more affordable than 180, right? That's still $30 off. But do I expect it to fall to 100? No. Not unless there's a massive reprint, like I said. Massive reprint, sure. It could easily fall to $100 then, for sure. Or below that. Easily go back to $80 if there's a massive reprint. And like I said, the part to me that seems odd is you have this large price appreciation with no volume, right? The volume is just regular average volume. So to me, this is a product that I would fully suspect will have some price retracement. So I would definitely not be buying any of these right here, right now. No way. So here's the 151 poster collection. This is one of my... the poster collections are a fun product for me because they're usually more affordable, right? If you're lucky enough to find them in stores, they're about $15. and the average person can easily buy them. Even when they start running, they still stay halfway reasonably priced, right? In this example, as of right now, you're looking at $78, right? Again, what do you see about this prices right here, right? Large spike in volume, right? People are supporting this price in the 20s range. You get a rebound in the 30s, but look, volume dried up, right? People were not willing to pay in the 30s. They're going to wait. Prices starts falling because nobody's buying, and the market's still getting flooded with product, right? As the price falls, volume jumps. People are buying it back up again. And what do you see right here? Do you see this massive 176 items sold? That's a reprint, right? That was a reprint within this late September, early October, that this product massively, or maybe not massively, but definitely had a reprint, flooding the shelves, that kind of thing at stores, right? And it enabled people to get some product, right? To buy this in the stores. The problem is, excuse me, the problem is that it didn't drive the price down really. See what I'm saying? It went from 142 to 39 bucks. Oh, dropped $2. Ooh, right? Why did it not really drop? Because there was a massive volume showing up to buy it. When there's massive volume showing up to buy it, it's not going to necessarily negatively affect the price. Okay? That tells you that there was, again, not a lot of liquidity sitting here, right? What happens? It just continues to move up. Hits 45. People say, well, but Brad, what happens from there though to mid-December, right? Well, there was probably still some stores trickling them out that were late, right? A lot of times Walmart and Target release their product later than TCG Player. I've seen that countless times. Plus on top of that, so people can find them in stores, right? Plus on top of that, you had volume disappear, right? Do you see that? Do you see the volume difference right here? Right here? In December and late November. See that? Look, you had a week, so you're averaging better part of 10, 15, 20 per week. Then look, watch. 12, okay. 6 sold in this week. 3 sold for that week. That's terrible from a volume standpoint, right? That means people stop buying, right? Buyers stop showing up, okay? Then boom. Spike 29, sure. Kind of going more back towards the average. My guess is people realize, oh, wait, is that 40 bucks again? What the heck? Started buying some. Bought a little, people were buying more. And then, since they haven't massively reprinted anymore, again, dried up and it's starting to move. Now, on Pokemon Day, this did get a spike in volume to 42. Okay? And there is some volume that's moved up with price. My guess is that it's mainly because people can't, or they don't want to pay for a $500 ETB, right? Or a $1,500, premium UPC, right? So they don't want to have that much skin in the game, but they don't really have 151. So what they're going to do is they're going to look for the more affordable products like this, and they're going to buy some of them because they're going to say, well, this way I at least have some of 151 in case it does go stupidly crazy. I have some of it, right? But it's not going to be insanely expensive, right? Think of it like this. If you saw Evolving Skies take off and run to the moon, if you were just buying just these ancillary cheaper products, they're still going to rip with the pack price, right? If it has 3 packs of Evolving Skies in it, and Evolving Skies packs goes from $10 per pack to $50 per pack, right? Your product is still going to massively appreciate. So that's what I believe that people were probably doing here, is they wanted to be on this train, but they didn't want to, they weren't going to buy the much more expensive product. So they're going to say, I'm going to get this. Even though MSRP, by the way, on this product for these posters are $15, they'll buy some at 1 or 2 at 70 and say, hey, at least now I have some skin in the game. If it continues to run, great. If not, I'll buy more when it collapses, right? But again, because volume is not higher, I do expect this to start coming down some, okay? I don't suspect this to stay at around $70 to $80. I suspect this poster collection to come down to at least $60 to retest, okay? Because the volume, while increasing, it's not crazy increasing, if that makes sense. And then here's just the regular booster pack. I wanted to show it. Currently, these run about $25. As you see here, there's definitely still some volume spikes. People love to look at this as a way to, if they truly have nothing, no skin in the game, this is a way for them to play this, right? And so right now, right now this set is, like I said, is $25. Okay, it's $25. So when you understand that, then you're able to play that. Does that make sense? And so one of the things to keep in mind, though, is to what I just said earlier. Expect, if you see the price of these booster packs, right? Right now, like I said, right now it's just below $25 plus $1 shipping. If these packs stay this price and these poster collections fall to, we'll just say it goes to $60, like I said, okay? But the pack price stays at $25, that tells you to buy these then, because these have 3 packs, right? So if the sum of the product is more expensive when they are is more value than it leaving it sealed, then people will break it open. They'll buy these, they'll break them open, they'll sell each pack individually for $25, and they'll come out ahead, right? And then they can even keep the promo cards if they wanted, and you're way ahead. But volume-wise, though, on the booster packs, there's definitely still some volume that'll spike up, like you saw here, to help support some of the price. We'll ultimately see at the end of this week, as far as what we're going to see price-wise. As you can see here, the volume has been inversely related to the price here. Of course, there's a lot more liquidity again of 151 down here in the 10 range than $10-11 than there is at 25, right? Because people are not, unless they start massively reprinting, there's not as many of these packs out there, okay? So I have a couple singles because I wanted to talk about volume related to singles, okay? Not just volume related to sealed, because they are 2 very different things, okay? And one of the big things with sealed product here is, keep in mind with these ETBs, for example, and how there's a spike in volume here, very healthy spikes in volume to support this higher price. Keep in mind when the price hits this $600 range, if price starts to fall to $550, let's say, people that bought it at $600 aren't going to be selling their ETB. They're going to be hanging on to it, okay? And so people don't fully understand some of this is, in the long run, these products do go higher in the long run, okay? The higher price you buy the product, perhaps the longer you have to wait to get your money out. But in the long run, as long as you don't break the seal or, bend the box and smash it or whatever, as long as you don't do anything like that, as long as it stays mint or near mint condition and sealed, in the long run, you're fine. Okay? But my whole point to this is that as time goes on, people will continue to break these open. Okay? They'll continue to break these open. They'll continue to rip them, and they'll continue to lose liquidity in the sense of there's less supply, right? There's less ability for someone to have a sealed Elite Trainer box, okay? But with cards, it works the inverse, right? As people are opening product, sealed cases, sealed boxes, all that is deflationary in concept. Cards are inflationary. Right? As packs get open, there's more Charizard EXs out there in the world. Today, there's more than there was yesterday. right? Yesterday, there's more in the world than there was 2 days ago. I think everybody can understand that. And so keep that in mind when you're trying to decide if you should buy sealed or singles. Just keep that in mind. Is that sealed product, there is less. Every single day, there's less product out there in sealed that is still sealed versus singles. Okay, singles is growing. Now, I have the 1 year chart pulled up here. I also have it separated by near mint only and verified sellers. Okay, because again, I only want the gold star sellers. I don't want to look at some random sellers or other languages. It's just English for English sets, right? So as you'll see for the last year, we saw a massive, pullback. But what do you see here? See how these prices, or the volume rather, see how the volume spikes here in May for 113 sold. See how it's 30, 33, 31. Yeah, you get these massive other spikes, but normally it's like 30 to 45-ish range. And then here you have one day where it goes 113. Okay? That was somebody trying to set the floor price on the Charizard at basically $200, right? And then they stop and wait and they watch. Price starts to come back down again as reprints continue to happen, more product get released, all that jazz. Here in June, 185, what happens? Boom, volume spikes are spiking again. Again, these are people, these are big players that are trying to set the price floor for this card, okay? But again, 185, in that range, right? Then once you start having like this, where it starts to rip, okay? Where you start seeing it rip like this and moves all the way up to 300 by late September, okay? When you start to see that, that is telling you, hey, this was the price floor, okay? So unless there's massive reprints, right? Unless there's massive reprints, which would obviously cause the price to plummet again. Unless there's massive reprints, that should be kind of the floor, okay? Because at these levels, you're going to have buyers come back in. The same buyers are buying here and right in here, okay? But you get this massive volume spikes right in here and right here. And with that, you see massive price appreciation. Okay, then you even see a massive volume spike right here at 300, right? Then volume starts to kind of teeter off a little bit. So does price, right? For Q4. And keep in mind, a lot of times Q4 for Pokemon, a lot of times is weak anyways, okay? That's very normal for Pokemon to be weaker Q4 because that's what a lot of sales are happening and product is dumped and everything else. So that's very normal for Pokemon. So as it continues to fall, then you get these random volume spikes, right? 70 right here, right? 22, 14, 59, 67, 35, 74. You get these random volume spikes. And what it is again, it's people trying to set the floor on this Charizard card, okay? When you see these volume spikes like right here, okay? Like right here. From let me pull it back a little bit. From basically mid-November, this November 17th, until this late December, okay? Right here, if you can see my mouse. See how how big those volumes was? Those are big players buying, okay? Buying this card, okay? See how price is going sideways or slightly down, but sideways more or less? They're rebuilding the floor for the Charizard right there, okay? If you see stuff like this, where you see very large volume spikes that are not normal for that card, that's not a normal week of volume, okay? That is telling you to buy the card. Because that's telling you there's big players that are loading up on this card, that don't see big reprints coming, that are loading up. Okay, that is a big buy signal. The light's flashing green. Buy. Okay? Trying to set a price floor. Does that mean you go all in? Of course not. But if you were looking at buying one before, you better be buying now. Because more than likely, these large volume spikes are coming in because people are going to load up on this card and it's going to be moving high very quickly. Okay? Because they're buying up the liquidity of this card. That matters. Liquidity makes all the world of difference. Okay? When you remove liquidity and you remove these structures, that's how price appreciates very fast. Okay? Even once the price returns to normal levels. And again, if you saw this and you hadn't bought and you start looking at it right in here in January and early February, right? See how volume completely fell off a cliff? But see how price didn't move down at all? Instead, it actually was kind of moving up. That tells you that there's not a lot of population of that card that's left for sale, really, right? The actual amount of listings obviously has decreased, and it's just kind of chilling out there, even though volume's low. Okay, the volume, the total amount of population that have been bought up by these big buyers in here has removed so much liquidity off this card. Again, assuming no reprint, it'll cause massive spikes. That's kind of what happened, right? You start seeing volume spikes. And the problem is some people that follow this card up here are only following because, hey, they wanted this Charizard, okay? They wanted this Charizard card, the top chase of this set, which is obviously a very nice card, right? And they kind of ended up having to FOMO into it, right? Because they weren't going to buy it. They weren't buying at 250. Because at 250, they probably said, oh, it's going to go to like 150, right? I don't need to buy 250. It's going to go lower in this price. Lower than July. No, it won't. Not when these large volume spikes of people buying. Not in here. No way. Sorry, dude. It ain't, again, unless there's a massive reprint, that's all you're hoping for. But when people say there's not going to be massive reprints, but yet these cards are going to fall in half, I just laugh. Because I'm like, from what? I mean, what's going to happen? If there's not a massive reprint, then how is it just going to all of a sudden everything cut in half? It's not going to happen. Not unless people need to sell it to pay their mortgage on their home. It's not going to happen, guys. So, as price went up, people started FOMOing in the card because they're like, I need this card, right? And then they're buying it at $500 when they had all this time when they could have got the card $250 and below, right? A lot of these people could have got it even below $200, okay? But instead, they're FOMOing in at $500. Volume's still very high. People are loading up on this card. Will volume stay up here? We'll see. Will price stay up here? We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised to see some price retracement just because, the card literally doubled in the matter of, a month. Maybe not quite double. Yeah, pretty much doubling, yeah. Within like a month to a month and a half. So, would I be surprised if it kind of came down a little bit to like 400? No, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, unless you have a massive reprint, good luck. Looks like right now it's 425. If you want to buy from a hobby shop, a very trusted seller, right? Over 25,000 sales. I always love buying from people like this just because it's always much more trustworthy, right? At 425, so not a terrible price for it. And even here, you probably, let's see. Yeah, see, today there's been 3, 430, 434, essentially 445, 439. And keep in mind, this does not factor in price of shipping. So if any of these guys charge shipping, you're not going to see it on here. This is just price that they put for the card itself. But one of the things to keep an eye out is when you're looking at 1-year charts, look for this. Look for large volume spikes, but price not spiking, okay? Because that kind of tells you something. That means people love this card and they're going to be shooting it higher at some point in time, okay? Again, assuming reprints to a minimum or whatnot, but that tells you that there's demand for the card. Because that's one of the hardest things, right? When people are looking at these $2 cards or $3 cards and like, oh, I just don't know. Is there large volume, right? Or are people buying the card or are they not? Because if there's not a massive amount of people buying the card, especially if it's not that old of a card, if massive amounts of people are not buying it, then that the market's telling you that they don't like it, okay? Here's a Blastoise. This card has went so nuts, okay? This is card number 2 of the set. Right? Look right here. Late November. Again, another card that was averaging 35, 40, 45 volume. Okay, the average week. Then 1 week, boom, 100. So over double, almost triple, right? A random week that's almost triple the volume. That's telling you something, guys. That's saying, hey, buy it, right? Is that the ultimate bottom? No, right? Right here in late December, mid-December, this card hit $68, right? So obviously you could have got it lower, sure. But that wouldn't have been a bad price, not $77. And shoot, it just was hitting $215. I mean, you over doubled your money. If you bought two there, you would have been able to sell one and keep the other one and plus make money on that, right? So, again, you see volume spikes, volumes following, right? So that means, again, people are buying this card. Whether they're FOMOing in because they didn't buy it when it was $60 or $65 and, they just thought, oh, I'm going to have time with 151, I don't care if it's $72, I'm going to have time. Well, hate to break it to you, buddy, but you don't. It's going to take off and it's going to move, especially when you have these large volumes. These are people loading up on this card, okay? Loading up. When people are loading up, it's only a matter of time before, guess what? There's no more of them, especially when some of these cards are rare. Like this is a special illustration of this Blastoise, right? There's not the crazy amount of these. Is there more than people think? Depends on the card and the set. But ultimately, it's not like this is a common card, right? You don't get these in every pack, guys. Venusaur. Now, this one, same thing. See the volume spikes right here. Look at the volume spike. Right? This has been averaging 30 to 40 per week. 20 some of these weeks even. Boom, 100. Really? So you're telling me this 1 week in November is 5x the volume it was the few weeks before that. Price is about the same, maybe even a little bit cheaper than a few weeks before that even too. And after this massive volume spike to over 100 in 1 day and 1 week rather, guess what? Price still didn't go up. Why didn't it go up? Again, they were removing liquidity out of the market, aka they were buying the listings that were available. And when they do that, that means less available for the future. Okay? You do that enough, price will start moving up. I promise you. That's how it works. Okay? Here in late December, early January, look, boom, another volume spike, right? And then plus some elevated spikes a few weeks later. And then that's when you start seeing price increase, right? Price starts picking up, and then of course FOMOing into the 150s. One thing that I don't like as far as for this card is, look at last week's volume. Is literally cut in half from the week before that. Don't like that, personally. So, again, it could be because there's less quantity on the market, right? If there's less quantity on the market that is price-wise, then yeah, it's going to jump, right? So a great example is, right now it says, let's see, so 151, about $151 there. And then it jumps to 160. See, 160, 161 effectively plus $1, so 162, right? 170, 175, 175, 176, 185. See what I'm saying? So all it takes is, and all these are only of one, right? So it doesn't take long, and this card's a $200 card, right? Effectively, yeah. So there's not really that many cards until this is a $200 Blastoise, Venusaur. Right? So now go to the next one, the Charmander. Right? This is a very popular card. People love this card. It's a very nice card. For 3 months, it's up 160%. 1 year, it's up 200%. Right? So the vast majority of money earned, or price appreciation, I should say, is last 3 months. Right? So again, look at the volumes. Okay, look at the volume. Massive volume spikes. That tells you people are buying the card. Okay, right here in December, people were buying this card. 119 sold that week. Okay, on average, a lot of these weeks it's been 30 to 40. Then it goes to 120. It's 4x, 3x. You know, when you're talking about 3 to 4x the volume in a single week versus the average week, that's kind of telling you something, right? And when it happens multiple times, because some of these products it does, it'll happen. You'll see on singles, it'll happen multiple times. That's telling you something, okay? That's telling you, hey, focus, pay attention. Are people liking this card? Or are people buying it, haven't said anything yet, but this product is going to be exploding higher, right? Pay attention to it though, right? As price was falling here in the 40s and 30s and stuff, volume spikes was holding up the price, right? In other words, people were buying it, right? They were buying it, supporting it. And it just kept hovering around this area. Guess what? People kept buying. Again, that's how it works. Then just kind of going sideways, sideways, sideways. Boom. Finally takes off. Why? Because when there is no more sellers in this area, volume takes off. 126. Then look, 140. Right? 141, 144. And then there's quite a few within this range. So I expect it to kind of stay within this 150-ish range. Just because, I mean, you can see here, right? Yeah. I suspect there's going to be, it'll be this price for some time, right? For sure. Because there's a lot of people here at 150. So I wouldn't be surprised if this actually comes down a little bit, like maybe to the 130 range ish. Again, we'll have to ultimately see, but there's a lot of volume sitting at 150, so it's gonna have to clear out a lot of volume before it can move up. And then the last card I'm gonna do, as far as for singles for 151 right now, is the Alakazam. And people have been loving Alakazam because some of these sets, you know, it's the first time that they're allowed to make some of these cards with the spoons and whatnot. Because for the longest time, Pokemon was not allowed to do that due to the magician, you know, that prevented them from doing it. So, so price, of course, appreciated from this $48, $45 range all the way up to, it doubled, right? Basically hit $100 effectively, right? A little bit below, but pretty much there. Again, look at the volume spikes. Spike in volume at 41. Spike in volume 53.5. Spike in volume at 43.5. Another recent spike in volume at 48. Right? Price appreciated. And then volume dried up. Right? People started selling their card back down. Volume showed up. Big buyer showed it back up again. Boom, 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 boom. Buy, 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 buy. Then look, volume dropped again, and then look what happened though. Price started appreciating, started going up with lower volume. Again, that tells you there's not a lot of these for sale anymore, right? And then all of a sudden, boom. And then people FOMO into it. Again, last week, not a great week for volume. Ultimately, we will see how it turns out. How does this card look though? Let's see, 84, 83, 487. What I'm curious about is how many of these are, yeah, see, there's quite a few at 90. I'm actually kind of surprised how many there is in the 90 range. I would have expected more of them to sit like these, where they're all like more at 100, because that's more of a natural barrier, being it's 100. Yeah, so there's definitely going to need a lot of volume to have to be pushing it up. Currently, the average for the last, let me see, for the last month, they're averaging about 12 a day. So, so could it continue to climb? Of course it can, right? But I mean, again, and as you see right here, right, price was still higher up here in the 92s, but look, like March 11th, it was only 5, right? And then March 13th there was 9. March 14th there's only 3 bought. March 15th only 5 bought. Do you see what I'm saying? And then today there's only been 2. So again, we will have to see what happens with this. But when you have lower volume, you still need buyers showing up in these 90s, being able to, to buy up these cards, right? And there's a pretty big barrier in the 90s for this card. So we'll ultimately see kind of what's going to have to happen on this. I will say for an SIR and the fact that it's Alakazam, it should be a card that people love, right? People love this card, just the artwork and everything. So it's a very high quality card. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if it does just kind of chill out slightly lower and then just go to like 88 and then go boom, starts taking, I would not be surprised personally. Again, being it's an SIR and it's Alakazam and it's the cool artwork, I get it. But just keep an eye out, like I said, for these volumes, right? When you see these volume spikes, that matters, okay? That totally matters. If you're going to some of these sets and you are clicking and you're looking at some of these sets and you don't see volume spikes, so let me show you one. Let me just pull up like Psyduck. I know Psyduck can be a really popular Pokemon, but see this? So now this is just a regular illustration rare, so it's not an SIR. But see how there's not crazy amount of volume really anywhere? That kind of tells you something, right? There was some in the beginning, I get it. But relative, it's not, there's really not any big buyers showing up, right? So can this card move higher? Of course it can move higher, right? As the set moves higher, and as anyone who's a big Psyduck fan will I'm sure will love this card, right? But again, it's going to be dependent on if people are buying this product, right? Is there big buyers? Because if your answer is no, right? If the answer is no, that's a problem, okay? That's a problem. How about one of the other Blastoise? Let's pull up this guy. Okay? This is kind of my point. So again, now this one is the ultra rare one. So for this, it'll be different, right? Obviously, as far as pull rates. Not as hard as the other Blastoise, obviously, to pull, right? But again, you do see some volume spikes. Some. Nothing crazy, but you do see some, right? Other than, I mean, there's a huge volume spike here in May. But otherwise, this product was, I mean, I remember buying these at $12 to $13 all day long. I mean, and there was people selling them on eBay constantly at that price. And so I was picking them up then because I'm like, yeah, makes sense. Now, is the card $40? No. But let me change the near mint because that's what I prefer to look at anyways. I was looking at 27 now. Yeah. So 27 there, 28, 28. Let's see. A lot of hobby shops here, which is always I always trust their near mint of a hobby shop more than other people. Let's see, 30 basically, 30. Yeah, it's not going to be hitting 40 anytime soon. I know that. Could it hit mid 35s? Sure, it could. It could. But I mean, it's got a lot of breakthrough to get to even just into the 30s. So, and the fact that the volume has dropped off last week versus what it was from 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't suspect it to really take off to go into the 30s yet. Some of these I think need to kind of come down and cool down a little bit before turning up. So, but anyways, that is it for the 151 for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you could subscribe to the video, I'd appreciate it. Yes, I'm a new YouTuber for Pokemon. I've done YouTube for different subject matter. But I do this kind of stuff where I look at different pricing every day. So if you have any questions, like I said, or any ideas, shoot them down below, and then and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.